I debated whether or not I even wanted to do an episode of anything today. I'm so disgusted by how the Yankees have let this hot streak turn into an ice-cold streak. They lost their fourth consecutive game, second in a row to the putrid Los Angeles Angels of California, of America, of Earth. Another bad start for Jameson Taillon, who seems to have come back to earth after his red-hot summer. To me, it just looks like he's tired. Like a number of guys, he's wearing out after just a few innings. He came out of the gate very strong last night, but then it all fell apart. Ultimately, 4 2/3, 5 hits, 6 earned runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. His ERA on the season up to 4.44. It was in the mid to upper threes just a few starts ago, so he's really fallen off. Bullpen was okay last night. Joely Rodriguez, 1 1/3 innings, no runs, and Lucas Litke, 2 innings of perfect baseball. 3 strikeouts, 2.93 ERA on the season for Litke, so that's a promising sign. Did have some guys break out with the power. Anthony Rizzo hit a home run that was barely a home run. It went just over the yellow line. They had to review it, but ultimately it was ruled his 18th home run of the season. Gary Sanchez also hit his 18th home run of the season. There was no doubt about that one. Sanchez had essentially been struggling for 2 months, so maybe this gets him going. Top of the lineup had a bunch of hits. DJ had 2 more hits. Rizzo had 2 hits. Judge had 2 hits. Stanton picked up another hit and another RBI. Gallo hit into his 3rd double play in just a few days. Mind you, he had just 9 double plays in his career until just a few days ago when he hit into one against the A's, and now he's hit into them in back-to-back nights. He looked really frustrated on the bench. And they keep saying that this is his game. This is his game. This is what he does. I disagree. He's hitting significantly worse with the Yankees than he did with the Rangers. He's hitting in the 100s. He hasn't hit for nearly as frequent of power. He needs to get going. I have to think that he's probably working with something on the side with Marcus Timms, which might have led to more ground balls recently. That's going to be a shame if you turn him from a home run hitter into a guy who hits lots of double plays. I get they probably want him to make more contact, but right now it's not going very well. The Yanks have one more against the Angels tonight. Then they have an off day tomorrow, and then they return home to play the Orioles. But the Yankees need to get it going. They have pretty much let the division get out of reach at this point. They're not going to come back and beat the Rays. I would bet every dollar in my bank account, if I were Pete Rose, that the Yankees will not play 9 games better than the Rays from now until the end of the season. Even though the Yankees' schedule is somewhat soft, that doesn't mean much, as we've seen the last few nights. Just because the schedule is soft doesn't mean they're going to beat the bad teams. This team, when they want to win, seems to be able to win. Even going back to earlier in this season when the red-hot White Sox came to town and the Yankees were struggling, but they seemed to turn it on. Defensively, they were sharp. They turned that triple play. They were great all weekend. They swept the White Sox, and then they go into a funk. And coming off of this 13-game win streak in which they seem to find a way to win every night, the last couple of nights just have not looked good. You got to do better against the Angels. I'm sorry. Pitching has not been great. Just got to turn it on. Now, maybe they've resigned themselves to the fact that, hey, look, the division is probably out of reach right now, and maybe they're coasting. You hope not. That's not the mentality you want from a team, because it can be hard to turn it back on again if you become too lackadaisical, or you can let some of your wild card lead slip away. Now that the division is probably out of reach, you have to focus on how do we win this wild card game, right? You're going to want to line up Garrett Cole to be on normal rest. You're going to want to have your entire lineup healthy and swinging the bat well going into that game. Right now, it looks like you're going to play the Boston Red Sox, although Oakland and Seattle both remain a possibility. Like I said, there's more than a month left, and Boston currently leads the second wild card spot. They're 3 games in the loss column behind the Yankees for the number 1 spot. Oakland is tied in the loss column with Boston, but they've got 2 less wins. And then Seattle is just a couple of games back. They're 3.5 back of that final wild card spot. Toronto not necessarily out of it either. They're 4.5 games back, but it's going to be tough for them down the stretch. The Yankees need to line up to figure out a way and start mentally preparing to beat Chris Sale in that wild card game. And should the Red Sox go on to win the wild card, the second wild card, I fully expect Cora will have his guys ready to play. They have not been doing great as of late. They've lost 3 in a row. Their run differential has dropped all the way down to plus 55. They're playing Tampa Bay, and they're struggling against Tampa Bay. But coming into Yankee Stadium, that team's going to be amped up to stick it to the Yankees on the road. There's a lot of bad blood between those guys. It's not just the fans. These guys don't like each other. And that's going to be an exciting wild card. Chris Sale versus Garrett Cole. It's what it's looking like more and more. Should Oakland or Seattle win that spot, I like the Yankees' chances a little bit more because neither of those teams has that dominant ace that can shut you down. However, Oakland does have the bats to be very dangerous at Yankee Stadium. Chapman and Olsen both have a lot of power. Tony Kemp, left-handed hitting pesky hitter. He beat the Yankees in New York. He beat them in Oakland. Yankees got to figure out a way to pitch to him should they match up in this wild card game. So it's going to be a stressful few weeks. I don't blame you if you're starting to get a little bit nervous based on how the Yankees are playing. My hope is that after tonight's game and they fly back, that everybody's able to rest for the off day in New York, and then they come out strong against the Orioles. Look, the Orioles are really bad. The Orioles are as bad as you can be. They're 41-90. That's a .313 winning percentage. They have a negative 233 run differential. 3-7 in their last 10. They are 32.5 games back in the wild card race. They are not going to make it. So what you need to do is come out and sweep the Orioles. Forget one day at a time. Forget all that nonsense. Dominate and sweep the Orioles with the intent to lock in some guys offensively. This is one of those series where some guys can pad some numbers. So if you play like, DraftKings or any of those type of apps, this series upcoming against the Orioles with some tired arms who have not been pitching well, Yankees coming back home after a long road trip, it's a good chance for them to pad some numbers. I look for Judge to have a big weekend. I think that Stanton is probably going to have a big weekend. Look for guys like Gallo and Rizzo, maybe even Sanchez. DJ LeMahieu should have a good weekend. I mean, the whole team really should have a good weekend against the Orioles. It is unacceptable to lose to the Orioles this upcoming weekend. But first, the Yankees have got to get through the Angels tonight. One more game. You hope that they snap this 4-game losing streak. But I tell you what, a flight home from the West Coast after winning 13 in a row and then losing 5 in a row, that's got to be tough. So you want to win and make this flight back as, I guess, relaxed as possible rather than tense. You don't want to lose 5 in a row before an off day either, because then you can't enjoy your off day. Even as a fan, forget the players. As a fan, sitting through an off day after 5 consecutive losses, I'm bouncing off the walls, man. But I do think that a lot of guys are starting to hit the wall physically. Jameson Taillon has had basically 3 rough outings in a row. But I'm not going to get on him about that because he's been so reliable all season. He's exceeded expectations to me. He really has. I didn't think he would last this long. I figured he would be on the injured list at some point this season, with some elbow tightness or some shoulder tightness or something like that. Maybe nothing serious. But I figured they would at least use the slightest barking of any potential malady to put him on the injured list and get him some rest. But you haven't had that luxury because everyone else has been injured or sick. And so Jameson Taillon has had to shoulder a lot of the load, no pun intended. He just looks a little tired to me. He came out of the gate very strong. His stuff was very good. He wore down. He hasn't pitched in a long time. And now you're in the dog days of August. Actually, you're not anymore. It's September, but last night was the last dog day of August. Wouldn't be a bad idea to call up Luis Gil, see what he's got in September. Maybe let Jameson Taillon skip a start, maybe 2 starts, so that when you do get to the playoffs and you have to throw another, couple of dozen innings at least, you're not exhausted. That's just one opportunity the Yankees have to tweak this roster. It's going to be an interesting September around the rest of baseball. In the NL East, Philadelphia is just 2.5 back of Atlanta. Remember, Atlanta lost Ronald Acuna Jr., so they don't have that guy down the stretch. And Philadelphia has a -8 run differential right now, but they've got Joe Girardi, World Championship manager, leading the helm. In the National League West, you've got the Dodgers just banging on the door against the San Francisco Giants, who have lost 3 in a row. Dodgers have won 2 in a row, and they are just a half game back. And they've got a big lead in the wild card. San Diego, 13.5 back. They are not going to be a factor. I know a lot of people expected San Diego to win the NL West. Not looking like that's going to happen this year, although they've made big strides. And, guys like Tatis are just so much fun to watch. It's going to be a fun September if you're a Major League Baseball fan. In the American League, the White Sox have the Central wrapped up. They're 10 games up on Cleveland. Cleveland just a game over 500. Minnesota has had a really bad year. They're 58-74 in the Central. Out in the West, Houston leads. Surprise, surprise. Every year they seem to win. They've got a 173 run differential. They've been really good this year. They are 5 games up on the A's. I mean, mathematically, you could see the A's catching them, but it's just not going to happen. I mean, the A's are not going to play 5 games better or 6 games better than the Astros down the stretch. So I'm counting on Houston to win that division. Angels have creeped up towards 500 after that win last night. They are 66-67. Texas bringing up the rear in the AOS. They are 47-85, 31 games out. So they're going to get a nice draft pick. The Yankees need a spark. With the rosters expanding, they have some opportunities to put some guys on the roster. I think we're going to see Estevan Florial called back up. The rosters expand to 28, so you get to bring in an extra 2 players. The Yankees had Estevan Florial on the taxi squad last night. I do like this new rule where you can essentially dress 28 players rather than having a full 40-man roster to your disposal. Because, one, it's going to make the games more evenly matched. There were times in the past where one team would have 37 guys in the dugout, and the other team would have 34 guys. And in the most important games of the season, it just never made sense to have different sized rosters. So that's something I'm glad that Major League Baseball has addressed. And normally the Major League Baseball Players Association doesn't like the idea of limiting the service time for potential players. But I think September's an issue where they didn't fight it as much because they just don't like the crowded clubhouses. It's probably just a selfish decision. Less guys wandering around. Anyway, the Yankees have lost 4 in a row. It's not looking great right now. Let's hope they can turn it back on tonight. I'm going to try and do a recap. I'm a little bit under the weather. I woke up with kind of a sore throat this morning, so I might take the rest of the day off and then just come back strong for the Baltimore series. But we'll see how the game goes. If it's worthy of a recap, I'll hop on and do something. But if not, we're definitely going to have the 6-4-3 DP over on Unhinged Yankees tonight. And then I'll be back on Friday for sure against the Orioles.